Yo, what's going on? In this video, we're going to take a look at a throwback trial who has some new issues that appear to be going on. Now, I don't know if you all recall, because this was back in the day, but the GOAT Michael Jordan lost his father due to a homicide. And that was a very big trial. I remember it vaguely because I was a youngster back when it happened. But currently, there are two persons in custody because of that. And one of them is up for the umpteenth time in front of the parole board. And the judge in that case is now saying that, yo, I actually made a mistake where it appears that exculpatory evidence, which is evidence that could prove a person's innocent, was made at the trial and or wasn't provided at the trial. And had it been provided, it could have changed the outcome in the case. And it's an actual big deal. So let's go ahead and tune into the video. I'm gonna break it down. As always, if you get some value out of this content, make sure you hit the like button, share, subscribe, the bell notification, and shout out to the channel members. You are the executive producers of the show. So, hey, you all get first priority. If there's something you want your boy to talk about or dive into, hey, you all get first priority because you all make the show go. I appreciate everybody's support, but especially members. Salute to you all. Let's dive into the video and talk about it.
Usually, it's the guilty party that complains about an unfair trial. However, in the case of Daniel Green, one of the men who has long been in prison for the murder of Michael Jordan's father, it's the judge who sent him there who's calling foul. Gregory Weeks, the North Carolina judge who handed down a guilty verdict to both Green and his accomplice, Larry Demery, in 1996, recently contacted the State Parole Commission and admitted that he might have made a huge mistake all those years ago. Turns out, the forensic blood analysis that played a key part in the trial wasn't as conclusive as he made it out to be.
All right, real quick. Soon as I hear that, I'm thinking, what the hell is going on? Now, there's a couple of things going through my mind. Before we get through this whole video, I got to pause it every now and then so we can talk about it. The judge in the case admits that he might have made a mistake all of those years ago. When were you aware of this mistake? Because I'm just going to be honest. I don't think he was a green judge to get this case. Normally, they aren't giving a high profile case to somebody who just got elected or appointed to be a judge 3 or 4 months ago. They normally give high priority cases like this to a person who's been on the bench, who's more of a senior person. If there's a mistake related to what's called exculpatory evidence is evidence that, if provided or had it been provided to the court, could prove a person's evidence. The judge has the unilateral authority to declare a mistrial due to certain types of error. And if he's saying that he made a mistake years ago, he probably wasn't green. He probably knew of that mistake back then. If that's the case, he should have declared a mistrial so that they can have another trial with exculpatory evidence presented. Because now you're talking about somebody's life is on the line. The years on someone's life is on the line. So that's a big mistake if that's the case, just from me hearing this initial thing. And it's a big mistake, a big no-no, a big mess up on the judge. And the other thing is, well, why is the judge just bringing it up now? Is it because you're old and you're on your deathbed and this is something that you don't want to die with on your deathbed? So the best way to figure it or make you feel better about it is, let me reach out to the parole board so hopefully this guy can get out. Because if that's the case, I'm saying that, well, had you declared a mistrial during the trial when this was going on and this exculpatory evidence was excluded, that person might have actually not had as long of a sentence that he received. Initial thoughts, let's finish watching the rest of the video.
During the trial, according to ABC News, Weeks confessed to the commission that he has been harboring doubt about his decision ever since he let the gavel fall. But how exactly was the blood analysis inconclusive?
Okay, real quick. He's been harboring doubts about his decision ever since he hit the gavel. So you were aware of this error so long ago that the time you hit the gavel, you were aware of it, but yet you proceeded to let the verdict stand and not do a mistrial. Big red flag, big stain on that judge, in my personal opinion. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. Let's dive back in.
It all goes back to the accepted narrative of the murder, which was largely based on ever since he let the gavel fall. But how exactly was the blood analysis inconclusive? It all goes back to the accepted narrative of the murder, which was largely based on Demery's testimony. Notably, he agreed to plead guilty to first-degree murder and testify against Green in an effort to dodge the harshest possible penalty.
By entering that plea agreement, he has a better shot of avoiding the death penalty.
James Jordan, Michael Jordan's father, was sleeping in his car in the parking lot of a Quality Inn back in 1993. Reportedly, he had simply been too tired to keep driving after a long day, much of it spent golfing with his son, and decided to rest. That night, Green and Demery came upon Jordan and decided to rob him instead of the hotel, which had allegedly been their original plan. According to Demery's testimony, Daniel shot Jordan dead after they decided to merely tie him up. It was only after they started going through his possessions that they realized who their victim actually was. During his testimony, Demery said that Green told him, "I believe we've killed Michael Jordan's daddy." Afterwards, they stole the vehicle and dumped Jordan's body in a swamp near Bennettsville, South Carolina. By the time the body was discovered by authorities, it was severely decomposed. Only through dental records were they able to make a positive identification. That's the accepted narrative of the murder.
Okay, now let's talk about it because I want y'all to know what's going on. Okay, so we have Demery as a person who pled guilty. Demery wanted to avoid the death penalty. So he essentially said, hey, you know what? Both of us did it. This is the facts. This is how it happened. Now let's take a listen to a defendant B's version of the facts. And remember, with defendant B, evidence that could prove his evidence appears to have been omitted during the trial, which the judge knew at the time he banged the gavel and accepted the verdict that was found by the jury. So let's hear what the version of the facts as it relates to defendant B was.
Green's version of the events, however, are quite different. According to Green, Demery arrived at his house in the dead of night and told him that he had shot a man and needed help disposing of the body, which Green helped him do. Besides that, he had nothing to do with Jordan's murder. This is where the forensic blood analysis comes into play.
Okay, real quick, before we go to, we're about to find out why the forensic blood analysis comes into play and could be exculpatory or evidence that proved defendants B's innocence and could have gotten them reduced sentence. This is why it's a big deal, because in the version brought by defendant A, both of them were involved in the commission of this crime. So they both were accessories during the fact. In the version that was brought by defendant B says he was an accessory after the fact. If you're an accessory before or during the fact, you're charged as the principal, the actual person who does the shooting in this example. But if version B provided by defendant B was accurate, if you're accessory after the fact, you're normally receiving a punishment less than that of the principal. The principal would have been the person who committed the crime. The example you see normally is if I engage in a bank robbery with you, we both are accessories during the fact. If you engage in a bank robbery by yourself, but you come to my house and say, yo, Marcus, can I hide this money here? And I put it up. Now I'm a participant, but I'm a participant after the fact. I'm going to get a sentence lesser than that of the actual person who committed the bank robbery. That's exactly what's going on here. Now let's tune in and listen to why the blood evidence not being provided is so important.
The blood analyst who examined the evidence was not able to confirm that stains found inside of Jordan's stolen car were actually his blood. Beyond that, the analyst also wasn't able to find a hole in Jordan's clothing that corresponded with the shot allegedly fired by Green. Further complicating matters was the fact that Jordan's body was cremated soon after it was unearthed, something that many of Green's advocates have found to be suspicious. Still, Daniel's attorney, Christine Muma, has admitted that this was standard procedure.
It was practice for a body that highly decomposed to be cremated after it was not identified.
According to Weeks, the analyst did not mention the true nature of her findings during the trial, which he said would have altered his final decision of sentencing both men to life in prison.
All right, real quick, let's stop it right there. Just so we know what's going on, Judge Weeks, I'm giving you kind of a goofy award because he's on the record saying that it's been bothering him since he banged the gavel. So he was aware of this at the time he upheld the conviction for defendant B. The other thing said it would have changed his decision if it was provided. No, it should have changed your decision because you should have declared a mistrial because you were aware, as the reports say, that exculpatory evidence was excluded. That's just, my take. It is what it is. Let's get it.
Demery was originally approved for parole in August of 2020, but the scheduled release was pushed back and eventually terminated. As of this video, he's still awaiting another hearing. Green's hope for release, on the other hand, relies solely on the petition put forth by Gregory Weeks. So far, there's no telling how the state parole board will respond. Green has long proclaimed his innocence, but has also accepted responsibility for his actions. He wrote in a letter to the State Parole Commission, "Every day I live with the remorse and the pain and the suffering caused by my youthful decisions. I regret the harm my actions inflicted on the Jordan family." As for how he feels about Weeks' efforts to potentially get him out of prison, he said in a phone call with ABC News, "It speaks volumes about this case, and I'm overwhelmingly grateful."
Okay, now, hey, shout out to Green for saying the right thing, but in reality, had he said something else, it would have been completely warranted for a judge who knew that egregious error with evidence that could prove a person's innocence was not provided, and you knew this at the time you banged your gavel to uphold the conviction. That's absolutely trash. It's terrible when we see these mistakes in the justice system, and even worse is you got to own your shit early on. If you make that mistake, you have to stand on it early on, because this is somebody's life. This is years off somebody's life. That's said, I mean, that guy could have potentially not had this long ass sentence. He could have potentially been out sooner. So, I mean, he said the right thing, because you don't want to, you're up for parole. You don't want to be rude to the judge and say how you really feel. But it's kind of a fucked up thing. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. And as always, if you enjoyed this content, check out the content on the screen. There's going to be more content related to finances and attorney reactions.